Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today we're looking at how do you inspire others. So this could be creatively, spiritually, in the way that you love and care, in your ideas, your philosophy, your physical or sort of athletic or other achievements. It could be in any number of ways. It could be in a number of ways. But that's what we're going to celebrate today, and we're going to be looking at what your sort of core areas of inspiration are at the moment. It doesn't have to be the only ones ever in your life, but the ones that are really, really key at the moment. How you can also inspire yourself to keep that energy going, and also how others help you and inspire you in turn. So, and we're going to look at how it manifests in various aspects or ways within your day-to-day life. So should be pretty exciting, hopefully very positive sort of reading. To help with the choice, I'll put down the numbers as always, and you feel free to go to more than one because you may inspire in a number of different ways, and it could be a combination across readings. So you do you, as I always say about that, particularly in a reading like this, where this is about how you inspire others. You need to be as true as possible to yourself. I thought what might help with the choice of reading was to use 3 different tarot decks, so a different one for each reading, and I've chosen the Sun card from each of those decks because I think that's a pretty good distillation of the energy of inspiration. So for pile number 1, we'll use the Radiant Wilds Tarot, so that's the Sun card from that deck. For pile number 2, the Unfolding Path Tarot with the Sun card from that one. And for pile number 3, the Ask the Witch Tarot, and that's the Sun card from that deck. So as I say, you can certainly go to more than one if you wish. But when you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps, as always, are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So how we're starting is just having a little bit of a map of your inspirational energy, sort of spiritually, in the kind of creative areas or how it's expressed, and then also the areas in life where it's expressed. And you're very interesting because I think there's 2 types of people in terms of inspiration that could have come to this, or some combination of both. So you'll know pretty early in this, I think, whether you've come to the right reading. There is a very strong energy of love here, both spiritual love, sort of universal love, connection to the divine, all of those sort of things, and love of family, love of those who are under your nurturing wing, whether it is literally, say, a child that you might have or children, or whether it is, people in a workplace that you look after. You are a natural nurturing person, a caring and protective person. But the interesting thing is we also, with Cancer and with these sort of cards, it all points towards that. You are highly inspirational about your empathy, your caring, the nature of how you love. But for many of you, this does play out in your career in some way, or how you're seen in the world. So for some of you, you may choose to use this sort of inspirational set of attributes in a career like education, like some sort of social sort of services and support, in sort of psychology, therapy, relationship counseling, any of those sorts of things. There's something about your capacity to connect to the higher realms, but also then to connect to the heart, that is, and protect others and nurture others and help them to do a similar thing. It's like you could set in place very good patterns, both in your personal life and also in your professional life, about the sense of nurturing and giving freedom for people to be who they are, explore who they are, and connect to their higher self. And certainly if you were doing a career in some way around spiritual growth, that is your core message, the love of self, the true actualization of self. You naturally connected here. You're very attuned, I have to say, both with the Archangel and Archei here. So that's the sort of feminine counterpart to the Archangel. And you actually have the ones that are connected. And when it could have been any combination here. So this is very much doubling down on your capacity to pass on, I think, sort of the ideas, the symbols, the synchronicities, the aha moments to people, because Archangel Jeremiah is all about this: signs, symbols, synchronicities. You see 1111 is there. You may be one of those people who sees 1111, 1212, 333, all those sort of numbers, that you are very attuned to, I think, sacred geometry, to the signs and symbols that are in numerology, but it's broader than that. You're a little bit ahead of the pack on the emotional weave of life. but your purpose and how you inspire people is to be able to fully live their life in a way that is true to them. Because it's also interesting, it's very spiritually connected. Though I think for some of you, as I say, you're going to do it through a very, very sort of, not necessarily conventional, though it could be, but something that's in the material world to a high degree, and you'll be known for it in some way, inspiring in that way. You could be sort of a social influencer around these sorts of things. But it is about getting people to understand who they are rather than, who society might require them to be. One of the challenges that I feel that you might have, because you are so naturally nurturing and protective, is that your intent will be to free others, but people may be so inspired by you they think they have to be just like you. So I think this is where helping them to see the signs and symbols and synchronicities that are true to them rather than to you is going to be part of what you need to bring to the table. And this is where, again, there might be something about what you do in your career, in the life, in the way that you are shown in the world. You could be an inspiration, a muse, a role model, but you need to sort of show that the point of your journey was personal, just like everybody else's is, and very spiritually connected. We have two color energies that are both in the sort of spectrum of the higher sort of chakras, around the crown chakra, that kind of energy connecting to the divine. One with lavender is showing your compassion, your empathy, your sensitivity. You very much embody that. People see that. But there's also lilac, immaturity, innocence, and youth. And I feel this is where you're nurturing and teaching others in some way. So you are able to take people, at all range. It's not really about age, but it's about people who haven't yet understood who they are and how to be who they are, and make them feel safe to be who they are. So, and as I say, many of you, it may be something that you do in your career, but if not, it's a natural energy that even shows out in your career as well too. So the natural sort of leader, but it's like in career, it's more like being the empress than the emperor. Now that doesn't mean that you are not a leader, but it's your leading is very much about nurturing. I think you're the sort of person who would find talented people and show them how to have their wings to be free and to really pursue their path. You're not the sort of person who's just ordering the chessboard in the way that, say, the emperor would do. So there's that sort of energy for you. You're very, very inspirational in terms of love, care, and liberation of people. And for some of you, it may even, be some sort of liberation job that you do that liberates people in one form or another, politically or socially. So it's a lovely energy, I have to say, and very, very connected. So let's use the tarot. And let's ask firstly a little bit more about the core nature of your inspiration of others. Then we're going to ask how you keep yourself inspired, because it's important to be able to do that, to be able to sort of fill your own cup before you can give it to other people, so to speak, to be nourished by. And then we're also going to ask, how do others inspire you? What's the sort of closed circuitry of this for you to also sort of learn and evolve, as well as I think there's a lot here for you helping others to evolve. So firstly, a little bit more about your core way that you inspire people, pile one. Judgment. Queen of Cups. That's interesting. I was feeling you're more Queen of Cups than, say, Queen of Swords. Seven of Swords reversed. Six of Swords. Eight of Pentacles reversed. So I think that part of this is the more compassionate way to understand people's karmic pathways, who they are, and not to be too quick to judge. I think that many of you will find yourself, and I think you've probably found yourself in this in life right from when you were a child, in fact, in your family when you first came in, but even now if you have a family or if you're looking to have that in the workplace, around friendship, you were someone who slowed down the quick judgments of others, that actually brought some compassion and empathy into it, that understood, that the difference is not something lesser or something that should be feared or shunned in some way. So you might have always been a little bit of an iconoclast from when you were young on that level, but it came from a very strong emotional energy. And you, in fact, can move quicker to decisions around emotional things than most people because you know who you are. I think you came in knowing who you are, and that's how you're inspiring people. You put freedom and that kind of higher order sort of where are we going in the future sort of energy far more to the front, if that's what's important to you. And that's a strategic power in actual fact, particularly if you're doing it in your workplace, having that kind of strategy. Where are we going? What are the steps that we need to do, and how do we make sure that it's emotionally resonant to, what our value proposition is, say, in a workplace. So there's something that was always inherently strategic about you, but it came from the heart. So it could be sometimes misinterpreted, I would imagine. Sometimes it may seem to be more sort of in the mind, but I think your inspirational energy is so open-hearted, and you give people the signposts, and then you step back to let them choose, just giving them the protection to do it. So I think if there was the initial feeling from you that you were so quick, so ahead, so you saw things, the patterns coming before other people, that it was a little bit in your head, your emotional energy and your emotional authenticity follows on very quickly, and people realize for you it's not about a mental battle. You're not interested in who's the smartest person in the room. You're not interested in who wins the debate. Like, it really doesn't matter to you, because the only thing that matters to you is that people are authentic, and you will fight inauthenticity, definitely, to bring clarity, to let people find their own path. And sometimes you will be an iconoclast. Sometimes with the Eight of Pentacles reversed, you're going to say everything almost needs to be unlearned and we start again. So sometimes this is a very radical thing. And I suspect if you're that, it's going to be in your career. I think that you're going to be sort of someone who takes up career options that break through old structures that aren't working, to bring in the heart and to bring in diversity and to bring in a better sense of unlocking talent and so forth. So the risk around it can be to be too quick to judge that's not necessary, to be so clear in your own vision that you just think everybody else can just do what you did. And I think this is saying one of the things you need to be aware of is that you are more in this energy. You can inspire others, but to think that they just automatically are going to know that being the core of themselves is what matters may not be the case. I do think for people like you do have to be aware that people can sometimes think you represent what that is. So being like you is the thing. So there is a kind of a push towards understanding that and having different pathways for people to develop this skill, because I think you're going to work with a lot of people who aren't like you yet, but could become like you in being themselves. That's what you're trying to inspire people to do. So given that, let's ask what you need to inspire you. Because, I mean, on one level, you're kind of all there, and the signs and synchronicities are there and so forth, and the mission of sort of like freeing other people is inspiring to you, but also you do need to draw inspiration from somewhere. We can't operate so freely and so in our individuality that we become detached. So what inspires you, pile one? King of Wands reversed. The Devil. Wow, okay. Temperance reversed. The Fool reversed. Okay, this is why a lot of this is coming out in the 10th house. As I say, for some of you, it is going to be sort of more around family, love relationships, nurturing and everything. But I think a lot of you, the reason this is in the 10th house is that a lot of what inspires you is a cause, to be frank. And it's a cause around liberation from oppressive situations, oppressive egos, all of that kind of thing. You can see when something's imbalanced, and you've been through this a number of times. You've seen it. This is why I feel most of you've been different right from when you were a kid. You've sort of felt this within the family, even if the family didn't push back, even if you had a protective, warm, loving family environment, you were still different. So you kind of had a lot of practice around this. So what seems effortless to you, and you're just kind of in line with the sort of the synchronicities of the world, you're connected to the divine and your sort of heart is open, has actually been hard won. And it's remembering that and wanting to liberate other people from the sort of energy that might be oppressive, aggressive, all of that kind of thing, to let them be free of that and free of the shadow and bring themselves into balance. That's your mission. You have a mission. So you're inspired by what you've seen and constantly seeing areas where freedom needs to be brought in. So it's almost like the opposite of what you bring is what inspires you to keep bringing it. Like an eternal flame that is lit by the need to help more and protect more. You're very protective. Like it's an actual very strong instinct with you. And people find this inspiring. You find the next challenge inspiring. So let's ask how other people inspire you, because you're inspiring people to sort of move towards this liberation, this freedom and this acceptance, and also to almost carry the torch of protection and liberation. But how do other people inspire you, pile 1? Page of Cups, the Moon reversed, the Emperor reversed. So Page of Cups, I mean, I think for some of you, this will play out around children, around family, definitely. So some of the inspiration you get is from your own children or something like that. It's not going to be true of everybody. The Page of Cups could certainly do that. But beyond that, it is that sort of sense of those that are open-hearted, those that have a certain degree of innocence really inspire you because they remind you why you're doing this. Ironically for you, though, the other thing that inspires you is the people that aren't good. So you definitely have a cause. You appear to be just this sort of like divinely sort of connected, emotionally open, protective, wonderful person who can just help people get on their pathway. But again, you're inspired by the opposite of what you are, to be that balance, to bring that balance, and to really show it up, show it for what it is. You know, the King of Wands reverse, the Emperor reverse. You have definitely been around people who do not use power appropriately. So you are, it's interesting. It's like you are inspired by almost a mirror version of yourself rather than by others who are like you. There is some of that. There is definitely those that are, you get, I think, replenished by coming across people who have a similar open heart. And you need that. You can't do this all on your own. But the real inspiration for you is liberation, freedom, synchronicities, connection, protection. And people are very, very inspired by it. So you can cut a swathe through this energy just by sort of like embodying who you are. It's really lovely. I really like people like you. So really happy this has come out. So one of the things I wanted to do with this is I wanted to look at it almost on an area with inspiration, your inspirational power from an elemental thing. So earth, fire, air, water. So I've got different decks to represent that just to get a little bit more information. So for earth, I felt drawn to a Celtic deck because there's a lot of the sort of sense of the earth, nature and so forth around Celtic sort of traditions. So I felt that might represent something about how you inspire people on that earthy, in the material world, grounded manifestation sort of energy. So for you, we have for earth, surrender, let go, freedom, flow. You show them how. You really do understand this materially. This is why the 10th house has come up. This is why the sort of the power things. You are doing this somewhere in a way to give people that they can actually do it, that it is possible, that they don't have to sort of like buckle under illegitimate power. They don't have to deal with anything like that, to show them that it's part of like the liberation to go within the divine, the energy, the symbols, the systems and so forth. But you show them that it's possible materially. It's not just a dream, you know. It's like you go into environments where people need protection and liberation and you actually show them it's possible. Possibly, again, I think you've dealt with this yourself. You're like a symbol of it. It's like a bit like, you know, the symbol of something like Nelson Mandela coming out of being sort of imprisoned for so long. There's something like that kind of energy at whatever level it works at for you. So that's earth. Let's look at water. So this is how you emotionally connect people. So I'm using the Sacred Sea Oracle deck for that. So this is your emotional, and there's a lot about emotion for you, the emotional inspiration that you give to others. Sea Goddess of Self-Mastery. Well, there you go. Again, self-mastery. You're very, I'm not surprised. Your whole energy is synchronistic. So you can show people that it can be done, and that from the emotional core, from the page level, where it's starting the heart's awakening, to when it becomes like the Queen of Cups, you know, the Sea Goddess of Self-Mastery. You know, you embody it. You embody it. This is the point. You live being individual, you live being free, you live by pushing back against the sort of wrong energy and the sort of like the sort of almost totalitarian energy of the world. You inspire by emotionally being true to yourself and showing that's possible even in difficult environments. Okay, so let's look at fire. So we're using the Creative Soul Mandala Oracle for that. So an energy around your creative, fiery, action-oriented inspiration of others, pile 1. Intention. So that's interesting. Intention to me is taking the sort of conceptual framework and then making decisions. So this is the judgment. You can make the decisions. Your actions speak for themselves. Your intention is aligned to the synchronicities that you see. What you create, what you desire, it is connected to this intention to be free, to be self-mastery, and to free others. So every action you take is inspirational because it connects to that core intention. And if you do something creatively, there's something very, very clear in what you do. This is why I think some of you may be misunderstood at first to be almost living in your mind, but you're not. And when people get to see this more, they see how much all the elements are embodied and how much it's an emotional connection. So speaking of the mind, what I wanted to use for the operation of your inspiration mentally was the Stories Oracle. So this is an oracle that's based on different constellations. It has a question, and I think the mind asks questions. So this question may help you either understand more of your inspirational energy or even give you the next step that could help you potentially to replenish your own sort of reservoirs or to help and protect others. So your question is from the constellation of Auriga. What will you do with today? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So this goes back to the intention. Signs and synchronicities. I think your mind is showing people that they can navigate even when there isn't guarantees, but if they have the intention. So your actions, you are open to course correcting when it's necessary, when new signs and information comes in, but you will always keep that North Star. There's something, and your North Star is about freedom and authenticity. That's what people are inspired by. And I think you get other people to feel a little bit safer with Cancer to do that kind of thing. So that's how your mind inspires others. So let's see what astrology and numerology want to bring to the table around your inspirational force. Pile 1. New moon. So you help people to go within to get to this intention. See, I think that like what happens with people quite often, if they're not in the flow of who they are and they're not comfortable in that, is that they can not consider what they're really doing. They just respond and react all the time. So I think this is an energy where you get people to see you, inspire them to go within and work out first principles, to know what are they trying to navigate to, rather than with the Seven of Swords reversed, always responding to whatever issue is coming up next that they have to respond to get to the Six of Swords upright, the kind of the navigation. I think that you show people in some way that going within. So some of you, this could be like in spiritual teachings. It could be what you do as a career or meditation or something like that. But there is something about going within to consider before acting what is true to the intention, what is true to the person. Then we have water, yeah. Very strongly, this is a big part of this. Cancer, as a sign that came up, the sea goddess of self-mastery. You have at its highest point, your emotional resonance is the sort of sense that's with this is what is the most inspiring thing about you, your emotional authenticity. You do embody this, you do ask the right questions, you do see the symbols and so forth, but it's your emotional connection to other people that is truly inspiring. And Saturn return, yeah, and the structure, the wisdom around this. Again, it's the embodiment. I mean, if you really think about it, Saturn return, particularly the first Saturn return, is when you've sort of embodied who you are, when you really kind of know who you are. And this is the whole core of what you are teaching, because you are teaching this, nurturing, helping people to see this, is to embody who they are. That's what freedom is. So it's a very powerful and important message, because there's a lot of stuff in the spiritual world and in the education world and everything that tells you if you look exactly like X or Y, then you've achieved what you're meant to achieve. But in fact, that takes us in the wrong direction. You're inspiring people to understand that they have to be what they are. They are really, not what society tells them to be. So to just finish off, I wanted to get a card from the Secret Language of Light to sort of say this, the true spiritual sort of almost apotheosis. What is the high point of your inspiration for others? Pile 1. You can't write home about this when it comes out. Authentic truth. Yeah, authenticity. That's you. You are very authentic, very free, very clear in what you do, very brave, actually, because it takes bravery to do that. That's incredibly inspiring to people. And your highest gift is to give them almost the liberation to follow their authenticity. The only risk, as I say, that I think comes with this is people thinking looking just like you is it. So you are going to have to temper that a bit. But if you can get them to go back to their first principles about what is their true intention, then you should be able to help them not do that. And you certainly have the wisdom for that. So the world needs people like you. So it's lovely to see that energy, a really delightful sort of energy to read for. I hope that you enjoyed the reading, Pile 1. I hope that it resonates for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So to get a bit of a map to start with around your particular inspirational energy for others, I wanted to have a look at it on a spiritual level with looking at archangels and archei, the female counterparts for archangels, some colour energy and also some astrology to get a bit of a sense about where this might sit or what parts of your life you're particularly inspirational in. And you're interesting. I do think that you are the ultimate storyteller, the ultimate writer, screenplay writer, communications person, all of those sort of things, because there is a really strong connection between two archei that start here. Like one archei, Constance, which is about bringing heaven to earth, which is a very strong spiritual connection about what the divine wants, is actually the angelic counterpart to Metatron. And Metatron is the archangel in Keter in the Kabbalah and is known as God's scribe. Then you also have Archei Serenity, who's the counterpart to Archangel Cassiel, but her purpose is to weave a new story that is more compassionate. And we have the 8th house, which shows psychic downloads, Pisces, which shows that sort of like the inclusion of all and a sense of, again, psychic connection. So it kind of gives us a flavour of the 12th house also being important, but the inclusion of all, something that is more gentle in a world that is more material. So I feel like, I mean, some of you could do this, you know, your inspiration could be around being a spiritual leader or a spiritual group, but I think that many of you, it is a communication you do in the material world. And for some of you, it will play out, as I say, in something like being a novelist or being a screenplay writer or something like that. You know, it could be with that, with these two archei. Very, very powerful communication ability and very channeled. Like I think if you did write or create in that sort of way, you know, music, lyrics, whatever it might be, it comes very fast to you because it's very psychic. So that is part of how you inspire others, in the stories that you tell, in the way that you tell them, in the eloquence of your language, in the beauty of the sound of your voice. There is all those sort of things that are there. But most of you are doing it in the world in a way that is very material. And you are dealing with obstacles. You're bringing a new story in. As I say, serenity here is about an energy that is kinder. So I feel like most of you are not in a particularly kind environment. So whether that's sort of around personal sort of situations, family, relationships and so forth, or whether it's in career. I think for most of you it's probably in career, because Sienna, which is about plans, preparation and training, suggests that you are preparing to bring this story in and to shift the narrative in some way. So you will inspire people to do practical things differently, to look at organizations differently, to look at the way that they interact with the world, their resources, how they plan and prepare and even develop themselves with training, you know, how they learn. Some of you could do this through education, but I feel like if it's education, again, I feel like it's got this really strong narrative structure, but it's kind of talking about it or using it in a very conventional, I don't want to use conventional because that gives the wrong idea, but very material way. So actually what it reminds me of a bit is that years ago when I was at university, I was studying politics, and there was a lecturer there who was amazing, like incredibly charismatic, brilliant man. I really kind of idolized him a bit, which is probably pretty obvious. And he did, like, I remember he did a course that was about bureaucracy and public policy. And he was just so amazing in the way that he could tell stories, and he weaved in pop culture. He did all sorts of things. He was amazing. That he managed to make what could have been a very dry subject fascinating. And it's almost like there's something here where you can do that. Even in the most dry and material areas, you can weave a fascinating story. You can make people start to see it in a different way, plan in a different way, accelerated learning. You've got that kind of energy. And trust me, that is extremely inspirational. As I say, I don't idolize people often, and I really idolize this lecturer at the university that I went to, and many people did. He was very, very charismatic because of that capacity. So I feel like there's something about that. You can go into very, very sort of like ordered or structured things and weave a new story, breathe a new life, get a kind of almost spiritual download into it in some way, or, get out, if it's not something like that, maybe where people are stuck in relationship patterns, in something else in life, you can start to show them that a softer, more emotional, empathic and psychic sort of connection can literally bring heaven to earth, can shift this energy. So your storytelling inspiration in whatever form you use it is exceptional, pile 2. So let's get a little bit more information about that from the tarot. We'll ask a little bit more about how that's playing out. Then we're going to ask where you get inspiration from. We see some of it here. I think you get downloads from Metatron or whatever. But equally, like how do you replenish that for yourself? And then also, how do others inspire you? Because inspiration is a bit of a loop. It should, when it's operating well, you get feedback as well, and you get inspiration. So let's see, firstly, a little bit more about this amazing, downloaded, psychically connected, but somehow materially grounded narrative ability that you have, pile 2. So Ace of Wands, that's not a surprise. 3 of Swords reversed. Magician reversed, okay. Knight of Pentacles, yeah, a lot of this is in a material world. Death reversed, okay. So you get inspiration, definitely. You get downloads. Like, as I say, if you wrote or did anything like that, it's probably very fast. You may not even know where ideas come from. Maybe some of them come in your dreams. Some of them get inspired by sort of works of art. There's a big rush of energy that comes through you. There is a divine inspiration behind you. So you get some of your inspiration. We've got part of the next line, actually. Part of your inspiration comes directly from the upper realms because you're very psychic. But as I say, it manifests more in this sort of narrative structure. And you are inspired by shifting environments, as I say, the Knight of Pentacles, ones that are worth doing it. Like there's a worthy cause to this, but it needs to shift and be able to make a decision, like where it's got stuck, where it hasn't been able to work out the next step. What's the next chapter? With Death reversed, it's sort of like you find those environments. And I actually feel, it's funny, like often when you see the Magician reversed, it feels like something that's negative, but I actually think this is not for you. What I'm getting for this is, with the 3 of Swords reversed, it's getting unstuck from kind of mental approaches, the storyline that's no longer working, that's got stuck. And the Magician reversed just turns everything on its head, brings in the new idea. I feel like that's your power. It is a magic power, but I feel like it's reversed because it's somehow you're using this incredibly magical, inspirational power in environments where if you actually said, oh, well, yeah, no, this is a download from the divine, that people would probably look at you like, what? But you can sort of do it. It's almost like a bit like misdirection. You can actually start to shift it. You can breathe new life into things. You can get things from being unstuck. You literally can go to the next chapter. And what interests me too is that with the 3 of Swords reversed, I feel like, the average structure for like a screenplay or a novel, and that's why I kind of felt that really strongly when I first saw this. You don't have to be a writer on that level, but it's an analogy to this is that, in a sense, by the 3rd act, that's the end of a story. So this is like what comes next. You kind of like, I feel like the Magician here reversed is unearthing the next thing where it's not even sure, the sequel, the next step gets it unblocked. So I do feel, but for most of you, I feel it's somehow getting people to sort of like see at that level in something that feels very conventional, and as a result has maybe got a bit stuck. So really interesting energy, pile 2. So let's ask where, how do you get inspired? How do you inspire yourself or find inspiration beyond just, I think, downloads from the sort of divine realms? King of Pentacles, Devil reversed, Seven of Cups reversed, Six of Pentacles reversed. You definitely get your inspiration from the material stuff that you're dealing with. Like, you're highly spiritually attuned, but it's like you almost have a mission. You're here on a mission to look at how this grounds. It'll be very interesting a little bit later in this reading. I look at the different elements and how it operates, and one of them is the earth element. So it will be interesting to see what you get there, because you look at material outcomes, and I think maybe almost aspirational outcomes. You know, when you're trying to work out what this narrative should be, I think you look to things that embody what it is that you are looking to do. And they're more free in their energy. They're established, but with the Devil reversed, they're more free. So it's like you look at different political or organizational approaches that are successful but are not that conventional, that are pragmatic. And, you know, a lot of you, it's not, you may to some degree be looking at where there is an imbalance of energy. Or it could be actually where people need to do things for themselves, because like the Six of Pentacles upright can be sort of like benefactor. So you're not actually looking for a benefactor or anything like that. You're looking at this as aspirational ideas. That's what you see. You look and see others who probably are a bit like you and who are working in this very material sort of area and very pragmatic. But it's sort of like, as I say, it's like people don't know, and I think you would pick up that these people are the same. People don't know the kind of spiritual and heart energy underneath this. It comes across as an incredibly brilliant way of speaking and telling a story and inspiring on that very literal level in very material areas. But I think you find your inspiration from being within the material, succeeding within the material, and independence within the material. Okay, so let's also see how other people inspire you. Again, I think we've got a bit of this. You're a bit ahead. It's because you're a writer, you're kind of a bit ahead. So like we already got kind of the inspiration, a lot of that comes from the divine. And now I think we're getting like, well, what kind of people inspire you? So you're already into the next story. This is part of the thing about you. You're ahead of the pack. But let's just sort of see what else Spirit wants to say about who might inspire you or where you might get inspiration from. Two of Pentacles. Yeah, it's like material choices again. Knight of Swords reversed. Justice. Some of you may do this, say, within the justice industry or something, like within sort of corporates and justice and that kind of thing. That could be potentially something. Social justice could very much inspire you with the Six of Pentacles reversed, and then justice. How do you bring resource management into balance? So those that work in that field might inspire. Certainly people who are very smart, who work from the mind, are very inspiring to you. But you like them to be sensible. You don't like them to sort of rush off and do something without thinking it through. You are very, very grounded. You're ahead of the pack, and these people are too. But you like and inspired by people who know how to cool their jets a bit and think about the consequences of things, make good material choices. Like you definitely would have people, I think, that you said these are like role models, or these are people who at least apparently, because you probably wouldn't be able to see all the behind the scenes stuff with them, but who seem to be apparently doing a similar thing to you, taking very material things into the next chapter, into the next idea. So others can do that, but you like to know that they're doing it on a fair level, that it's balanced. And that goes back, I mean, of course, because if you're getting inspiration from the upper realms, you could not be going down a direction that was not just in that broader sense. So as I say, I want to have a look. I'm using 4 different decks, 1 card from each, to look at energies around the 4 elements. So earth, water, fire and air. I'm going to do it in that order. So I just chose different decks that I think might show that. So this is a little bit more information about your inspiration for others with those elements in mind. So very interesting to see for earth for you. I'm using a Celtic oracle because I feel it's very nature-based, that kind of magic. So let's see a little bit more about the earthy energy of what you inspire. Master of the Hunt. Speed, masculinity, flow. So this doesn't mean that you have to be a man. It's not sort of gender on that level. But certainly there is something about the powers of the world. There is something about the material world, the King of Pentacles sort of type turning up here. But being able to go after the next thing, the hunt, like you have a purpose. You're not just doing it just to get through. You'll get through the obstacles. You'll have the plans and the preparation. You know, a good hunt has good preparation for it, and it has a material outcome. So you would be seen, I think, as someone who has a very strong purpose. Your narrative has a very strong purpose, and it has a very strong, once your next thing comes through, a very strong third act. What is the outcome? Very outcomes oriented. Okay, so let's look at the emotional side using a Sacred Sea Oracle. So how do you inspire people emotionally? Dolphin Spirit, activate more bliss. So I think, honestly, when I was sort of shuffling this, I do think that you can inspire on all levels, definitely. You're very divinely driven. But I do feel as though this is a little bit more hidden. I think this is something that people see who are very close to you. So I think it's sort of like you're on, kind of on a lot within the material world. And a lot of people see this more. But those that are close to you see that you ultimately want people to enjoy themselves and to be doing what they want to do. And in a sense, to be able to write their own story. But I feel like that's a little bit hidden, and it's shown to those who you're closest to. So you'd inspire people there by saying there is a point to this narrative. There is a point to pushing through these energies and reviving stuff, because ultimately it might be just so that you can have a holiday sometimes, or it might be because this will make people happier. Like that's the end result. And again, if you write sort of like novels or something like that, I think your last chapters would actually end on an upbeat. To show the point of the whole story was to liberate and free and become happier. So speaking of like creativity, because there's something very creative about this energy in particular, let's have a look at what your fire energy is. Also, because we know that some of how you get, how you inspire others and how you get inspiration is from downloads creatively. So using the Creative Soul Mandala for an energy around your inspiration from a creative action, passion, drive level. Harmony. So isn't that interesting? You're actually about harmony. So in the end, what is driving you is something that would be more in balance, more in the narrative of the universe, more with Pisces, a connected sort of energy for people. I just think the interesting thing for you is that that's in the result. I feel like there's like, this is the energy that inspires people initially because they see you going after something, a change, a shift, making something better. And there's a part of it that they can see at the beginning, which is something that's more harmonious, something that's more in balance. People who like to skip to the last chapter would see the last chapter is about this. But a lot of people are seeing more how you manifest it in the world. And they also, I think, because of the narrative, going to be seeing what you think. And that's the air sign or the air element. So in this, I'm using the Stories Oracle because that's constellations with questions. And I think the mind operates through the questions it's asked. So let's see the energy of your inspiration from your mind, from the air element. Pole 2. Aquarius, you've got an air sign. You're very, very aligned. How can you fill anyone else's cup if yours is empty? So there is sort of something in this about this is, I mean, you are getting the download and everything, but I think you know that you need to take a bit of time out. So this is probably this, part of it is that you'll work hard, but you'll play hard as well. I think that's what I'm sort of getting. People will see that. And that you know that you're divinely connected, you're getting that. But I think it's also the balance that you're looking for and the harmony that you're looking for, because others will be able to do that for you. So, and it's maybe a question that you ask people. If you're hitting up against brick walls and obstacles and so forth, and something needs to be planned to break it out, it might be like, where are the resources being used? What energy is being used? How could we do this smarter so that everybody has a full cup, so to speak? So you challenge in that way. But, your last chapter, as I say, is something that is more free. That's what you're kind of looking for. So let's see what astrology and numerology brings to your inspirational ability, pole 2. Midheaven. Yeah, a lot of you, this is going to be playing out around career, around big organisations, around money, around politics, around social causes, whatever it is. Or if you wanted to be something like a writer or a creator of that sort for your career, you could definitely do it. You could definitely do it. Okay, let's see what else. 6th house. Yeah, but a lot of it you're doing it in the 6th house, in service to others, in breaking through those bureaucratic things. But you could do some sort of creative thing as well. Maybe you could do both. And 5, yeah, breaking through blocks, breaking through obstacles. You kind of have a bit of a mark of genius about you, I have to say, because you are ahead and a lot of it is being downloaded, and you could actually find the way through, how to plan, how to get to that next chapter. Like, the other thing too is if you didn't want to be a novelist or something like that, you'd probably be an absolutely brilliant structural editor for a writer, because if they got caught in plot points, you'd be able to see how to get to the next thing, how to break through that, just structurally. Like, you have a very structurally competent mind, like it's natural to you, something that other people might find hard, you actually find quite easy. So pile 2, just to finish off, I wanted to get a kind of spiritual energy, like how does all this inspiration come together for how you spiritually inspire people. And we have create space. Okay, so I think there's almost a kind of internal pun in this, because I think part of it is about creativity. I do think that there's a risk for you, pile 2, because so much of this might be in service to others and in the material world that you may, in fact, not create as much as you would like to create. This is why I think it is important for you to also find your bliss. And this is why some of you may do something very in the world, very material, and bring these skills there, but one day do it creatively. So I think there is something about creating space for yourself, and you become inspirational to others by doing it. But I think you allow other people also to create space in what seems to be a stuck thing. Create the space to start to see what else could be. What could be that last chapter if one starts to plan or think about it differently. So you're a kind of a change agent, but it's an interesting energy, because I don't feel like you're necessarily someone who would go into an organisation and be a change manager. I feel like it's more that you are the born storyteller that shifts the energy just by simply being able to see the next steps and being able to tell a very compelling story, like a communications person, a PR person, an organisational strategy person. You're very, very brilliant with that, and you're very psychically connected. But as I say, I think most of you probably won't say that in most of the environments you're in. But you are giving the space for the new, for that which is not yet born. So that is your inspirational genius, I think, pile 2. I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So to start the reading, I wanted to have a look at how you inspire from a kind of spiritual level with sort of archangels and archei, their female counterparts, with some colour energy and also with some astrology. And there's some similarities between this and one of the other readings, and so some of you may have gone to two, in as much as I think that a big chunk of your inspiration for others is in being true to themselves. But it's manifesting in a slightly different way, because the other reading was sort of about liberation, to be authentic, to be themselves on a kind of a self-development level. For you, it seems to be about understanding their power, in a sense, almost their nobility, their prominence, their star quality, whatever that might be, but in a very clear and grounded way. And why I say that, so you're not the sort of person, if you were doing this as a spiritual thing, you would not be sort of like telling everybody that, you're sort of going to be a king or queen, and you just, that's who you are and that's your right just by sheer being born or something like that, or that you just have to sit and meditate for a while and you're going to be, high vibrational. You're not that sort of person. You would be saying, do the work. You would be saying center and ground with Archangel Sandalphon. You would be saying clarity, knowing what it is that is unique about you that makes you stand out and be prominent is the thing, and to be honest and to be able to sort of self-regulate and all of those things. And to be able to move forward when necessary, and also to rest, reflect, recharge, as Archei Clarity talks about here, when it's necessary. So it's not all without fun, though. Archangel Sandalphon uses music and creativity and all these sort of things to sort of help inspire people. So there's certainly that sense of, I think of sort of some of the sort of modern day musicians who end up with followings where part of what their message is to be sort of powerful within themselves. So there is that kind of like creative energy around this, but for you it has to be clear, and it has to be really true to self with the fourth house. And Saturn here, you may either be a bit older than a lot of the people that you're inspiring, or you may appear older. So you might be sort of one of those people who even when you were a kid you seemed like a grown up. So you don't have to be old, but there is sort of a feeling around you of gravitas. You have gravitas. And I think that's sort of, there's a bit of like the charisma around Sandalphon. So you're not all kind of like serious all the time, but you do have gravitas. People will listen to you. It feels like you come with wisdom and knowledge and so forth, that you've done the work. This is the feeling I get. Part of your inspiration is to do the work and to be not afraid, to be clear, to look at the connection between actions and outcomes. That is the way that you become strong. And there's a sense with sepia here around nostalgia, reminiscence, reverie, of knowing that who you are now is part of who you've been, and being able to own and honor that. So even if there's mistakes, learn from them, move on, recalibrate self in the fourth house. The energy I get very, very strongly from you, as I say, is this sort of clarity and so forth. I feel that most people instinctively know that you are a point of clarity and understanding. Instinctively know that you will tell them the truth without any sort of embellishment. You'll do it kindly. You could do it incredibly gently and beautifully, actually, with Archangel Sandalphon. But you will help them see what their true, sort of nobility, their true sort of divinity, their true prominence is, rather than, as I say, sort of something that's packaged up to make them feel good, but it doesn't really help them because it's not really true. And I feel like, as I say, you've probably done it yourself. I think you come across as very humble, but very clear. And you're absolutely the sort of person that people go to for advice, because that just radiates from you. But underneath, you know who you are, and you know your own nobility, you know your own prominence, and it shines out of you. But it's like you don't need to say, oh, I'm this powerful person spiritually, or I'm this amazing person in a workplace or whatever. It's a humble energy about it, but the people respond to because they see the depth there. So it's inspirational on a very, very profound level that you give to have people really understand who they are and to go into power. Like the other one felt more like going into freedom. This is almost like the next step. Some of you may literally go to the both readings, because this could be then the next step. Having done that first step is then this. How do you get real clarity and ground this energy properly to then go into power? So very, very interesting. You could be a mentor or a coach to powerful people, to people who have enormous potential. You could be a coach on a kind of literal level, like a sporting coach or something like that. You could be a teacher, an academic. There's gravitas to you, and a lot of a sense of like almost having brought in a lot from past lives and all of that sort of thing as well. So let's get a little bit more detail from Tarot about this, about your core inspirational energy. Then we're going to have a look at how you get inspiration, and then also how you fill your cup, so to speak. And then lastly, who inspires you, or the energies that inspire you. So firstly, a little bit more about this sort of humble, almost understated, incredibly powerful, incredibly resonant, incredibly true sort of sense of power. It's about power for you. So we have Nine of Wands reversed, Four of Cups, Ace of Cups reversed, Queen of Swords reversed, Four of Wands. Okay, this makes a lot of sense, really. A lot of these reversals, you might think, oh, but I actually think this is the point. I think that people come to you when they're at their potential lowest ebb, when they're in situations where they just don't know how to break out of an emotional blockage, where they're brokenhearted, where their inner critic has turned on them, or where critical energy has turned on them, and they just don't know. So you could be a mediator and negotiator in environments to take it from a sort of sense of oversensitivity to harmony. They see you as representing what harmony could be and how to bring that into power, servant leader sort of thing or whatever. But it's like you inspire in this quiet way that people come to you at their point of most need. Like you do have a charisma. It's interesting, but as I say, it's almost through like music or something like music or poetry or something like that that may actually kind of people respond to that then makes them want to talk to you about things. But there is just this sense of when something is really at a point it needs clarity, when it really feels stuck, you inspire people to come back to some sense of harmony, to work out how to get that energy back, to work out how to get the cup here that's being offered rather than thinking, oh, those cups weren't what I want, how to come out of heartbreak, how to come out of too much critique. So your inspiration is people know. People just know that you just know, that you're just right. And I can say that to you because you're clear enough to know not to sort of think that that means you never need to question anything. Part of your whole process is to question things, to question yourself always, to ground yourself always, to look at what you did. Like you're the sort of maximum thing I say quite often is that don't look at what people say, look at what they do. You know that really deeply, and you look at it in yourself too. Because any of us can have pretty rhetoric that sounds like, we care about others or whatever, but how we act is the thing. And people see that in you. They see that you're the real deal, basically, pile 3. So let's see how you get, how you inspire yourself or how you get inspiration around you to have this kind of clarity. And because it's not heavy, but I almost feel like I want to sigh because it's sort of like there is a kind of weight to what you do. So that's why I'm glad that Sandalphon is there too, because although it's a grounding energy, it also has a lightness to it. It's like sort of like landing on the ground, falling and landing on the ground, but just in that last moment, the sort of like the kind of energy makes it a very soft landing. Like you make it a soft landing for people to get to this clarity. That's why they can do it. I mean, you could be, some sort of counselor or something as well. You really understand human nature really, really well. Okay, let's see where you get inspiration from. 7 of Swords reversed. Queen of Wands reversed. 7 of Wands. Knight of Cups. Okay, I think a lot of your inspiration comes from yourself, your own background, and your own reflection. And I think for you, that's the right place for it to come. It looks to me like you have built up this sort of like inspirational energy and this clarity and everything by really looking at what were the decisions you made and when were they the right decisions, when were they you tempting fate or bargaining with fate, when did they work towards your authenticity, when did they not, and you look at it very objectively. Like you don't feel frightened of seeing whether you did something wrong because there's sort of this sense of course, you can always then take up the energy and move on and do something different. So you have this sort of sense of being able to correct energy and move forward. And you are a romantic at heart. Like most people will come to you for that clarity around all sorts of things, love, organizations, like patterns around, beliefs, just having the energy, being coached or mentored, all of that kind of thing. A lot of people will come to you for that. But underneath everything, you are actually a romantic at heart. At the end, what you do want everybody to find their power. You do have this sort of romantic view of we could eventually get to the point where we didn't need to kind of understand all the machinations of everything all the time because people would be feeling more true to themselves and so forth. There is quite a strong connection with another reading here, I do think. But as I say, for you, it's kind of at a slightly different level or a slightly different focus. You understand yourself very well. You use yourself as the best barometer and where you have not felt in your power. Why was that, and how did you get that back, and how did you get back on course and start following your sort of, your holy grail, so to speak, because that pattern would work for other people to find their power as well. So let's see how other people inspire you. So like the external inspires you. Page of Swords, the Star reversed, King of Pentacles. Okay. You get a lot of inspiration from the mind. Like you are very mind oriented. So the next step of this reading, we're going to look at it through the different elements, air, fire, earth and water. So air will be very interesting for you because I think you get a lot through the communication with others, through the process. You get almost as much back from other people when you are inspiring them as you're giving to them, though it's sort of like they probably aren't even aware because they're going to be, most of the people around you are going to be very, very self-focused, I have to say. But that's okay because you're actually learning from that and you're always course correcting and comparing it to yourself and understanding more about yourself. So you get a lot through the communication with others, both spoken word, written word, online, all of that kind of thing. You get inspired by seeing where people have lost their sense of the North Star because you've looked at yourself. You know that there are times when you haven't, where you haven't been clear enough, where you haven't been grounded, where you've got grandiose, whatever it might be, and you had to get back on course. So other people who have a North Star that you can kind of see, but they're not following it yet, you get inspired by that because it shows that we're all works in progress. And you get inspired by the material outcomes. This is the grounding. If someone is in that spot, who around you or what you've done or what you've seen actually got to that point of mastery on the material level, grounded it properly, really brought it into being and made it last. So I think you have some role models that you think, probably in the material world, inspire to you that that journey is possible, that people can get to it, that there are authentic leaders. That the lovely energy here is that you don't look at everybody who's powerful and think, oh, they must all be corrupt, because not all of them are. And you see that. You see that not power does not necessarily mean corruption. Power can be authentic. So I think that there are some role models for you that you see. So I think there's a lot about the material, the earth element, and a lot about the air element with you, but we're going to now look at all four. So we're actually going to start with the earth. So I'm using a Celtic oracle to look at a kind of energy around how you inspire people around the groundedness aspect, the earthy element. Tree spirit, strength, growth, stability. Look at that. Look at that. You have role models that you've watched and followed, and they inspire you, and you're bringing the same sort of grounded energy to other people. You really do show people it's possible to get there in a grounded way, that they don't have to become a little bit sort of like narcissistic to get there, that it's possible to go into power, to step into power, and to do it in a grounded way. Very sort of natural energy there. Let's see around water. So emotional, because a lot of this doesn't feel very emotional. We're not really seeing cups much. There's a bit. There's people who come to you who might be a bit brokenhearted, but otherwise there's not a lot around cups. So let's just sort of see the emotional inspiration that you bring. So I feel it's more like you bring clarity and groundedness, but nevertheless, we all bring each of the elements to how we inspire others. So in terms of water, we're getting a card from a sacred sea oracle. Sea goddess of creativity. Okay, so it may be that for you, the way that, and this might be why the sort of music energy was there and so forth. Maybe it's sort of like your emotional side of things you show through creative elements. And I do think music, poetry, that kind of thing potentially could be it. So, but it could also be you paint, or you take creative approaches to things to have people sort of unlock their clarity, whatever it might be. But I feel like most people see your emotions through something creative and are inspired by things that you do that seem creative in that space. Let's have a look then, using the creative soul mandala oracle, about the sort of fire element. So the more purely creative, the action, the ego, the drive, the ambition, all those sort of energies, how you inspire on that level. Pile 3. Creative spirit again. Okay. A lot of you, I do think there's something very creative about what you do in your career, or, in your sort of like, private life, or whatever you might do, sort of creative sort of energy or whatever. There is, or you may create a process to get people to be able to be very clear, deal with their past, understand their past, see the patterns, break the ones that aren't working, move towards ones that are more clear and more balanced. There could be something you literally create and it has a lot of emotional resonance to it. Or it may be that people see inspiration from you in what you can create, what you can ground, what you can manifest. Okay, so we also said that I think swords are important for you, that the way that you think, the clarity. So for the air element, I'm using the Stories Oracle because it's based on constellations and it has a question. And I think questions are how our mind, particularly for someone like you who's going for clarity, kind of connect to others, the questions that we ask, almost a Socratic method, where, like a teacher, a good teacher who, in fact, you would be a natural at Socratic method of like getting people to start answer questions and get them to come to conclusions and be able to sort of see things that way rather than just giving them the answers. You're not someone who would just give them the answers. So, as I say, if you're not familiar with the Socratic method, maybe look it up, Socrates' way of teaching. But let's just get a card from the Stories Oracle for you. We have Leo. What if you are so much stronger than you realise? So I think that might be something you ask people, but I think it's something you also need to ask yourself. I think you inspire people to realise all that they could be. This is the whole thing. And in a really grounded way, in a way that is true, not in a way that is, sort of sold to people to make them feel good about themselves, but it's not going to manifest. You're, as I say, it's true. There's a lot of clarity and truth in what you do. So that's powerful. But I think that's something that you probably ask people. It might be one of the questions. But I think it's also saying it to you, because I feel you're quite humble. I think you might be your own hardest critic. So maybe just turn a little bit of that on yourself, particularly if you ever feel that you've lost your North Star, pile 3. Okay, and speaking of stars, let's see what astrology or numerology energy helps you or is part of your inspirational energy, pile 3. Waxing crescent moon. So that's all about new intentions and seeds. Yeah, this is you all over. It's like coach, mentoring, teaching, educating, Socratic method. What do you want to bring into being? What's your end goal? What would you want to create? These are the sort of questions you would ask. What if you actually started to see you could be so much more? What would your intentions be? There's something about that. And you've done it yourself. This is the point. You've done it yourself, but you're not showy about it. Okay. Libra, bringing things into intellectual balance. Yeah, questions, the mind. A lot of this is about the mind. That's why we've got clarity coming up first. There is a lot of heart and creativity under what you do, and there's a real groundedness, but a lot of this is explored in the mind. You're someone who challenges people's ways of thinking to bring it into better balance. And descendant, yeah, and it's all about how people relate to each other. And you could actually say there's some very key relationships around this for you. It may even be your own journey for some of you towards the right partner is sort of something that people find very inspiring, and they want to do it, particularly those who sort of feel that, they're a bit stuck emotionally, for instance. So there's something about how you relate to others that's very important here. So to finish off, pile 3, I just want to get a card to represent your spiritual inspiration for others. Like on a really sort of higher level order, what is the core thing that is inspiring others by your presence or your interaction or your help? Soul song. Yeah, there's something about music. Like some of you, as I say, you might have a very beautiful speaking or singing voice. You might write music. You might use music as a way to sort of like get people unlocking their sort of like clarity and their sort of grounded energy. But if you really think about the soul song too, that's getting to the core of who you are and coming into your power. What is your beauty? I think you open up the beauty and the power in others. But as I say, you do it in a very, very grounded way. You don't sugarcoat, and some of it may be a little bit tough going for them, but at the end, this is the payoff. It's a beautiful payoff, and it's a payoff that can last. So keep doing you, pile 3, because we need people who ground this sort of energy. It's very easy, really in particular around spirituality, but really in all areas of life, to want to only hear the thing that makes us feel good about ourselves, but that's not the thing that's necessarily going to make us grow. We need the clarity and then also the understanding that we do have power and a capacity to become so much more. And, your belief, you've done it yourself, you can show it, and you are wanting to help other people with it. So it's very beautiful. I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.